was really attracted to the stuff that I saw online that you were doing. You were doing so much work with so many people. Like you're having these looks like pretty young people. And I've coached myself before. I've coached some high school kids. And man, it was so much fun, but it was so challenging. And I'm seeing these people squatting with really good form and doing what I would consider to be complex exercises, front squats, box squats, and you have unique ways of utilizing bands and chains and weight releasers. And it doesn't look gimmicky to me. It looks like it looks like there's a purpose. It looks like there's a whole program going on. And I just love the enthusiasm. You're getting these guys all fired up, guys and girls. And what is it like? What does it take? How do you get control of the room when you first walk in? Because you've been a coach at many places now. When you first walk into a room of like 30 kids that just want to kind of dick around and throw rocks at each other and mess around with each other and not pay attention to the new guy, how do you kind of start out? How do you get their attention?
That's a really good question. I think I'm pretty serious about what I do. So I think when you're kind of, I wouldn't call it, I guess, maybe in command or whatever, but like, okay, here's how we're going to do it. Here's how we're going to go about it. Now I'm going to go about that different ways. So like, I might come off like, pretty serious on something or whatever, or I might start like kind of making some light jokes and now let's get into it, like whatever. But I'm also going to be, as I mentioned, if we're going to do something, I'm going to do it done a certain way. So it might not be perfect on day one, all right? But I've got it kind of where I envision it going. So we need to be at certain steps when we're going about that. So when I have like a large group, trying to meet them, just being honest, like, hey, Saturday morning, I know, hey, you guys want to, and this has been, a realistic conversation I had with older Division I football players. Like, it's a Saturday morning, it's 8 a.m., right? Do you just want to be here or do you want to get better? Because like, I'll be honest, I really, if we're just going to mess around, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here at 8 a.m. just kind of like saying we were here. Because you know what, when we go play, it's not going to be something in a scorebook, 10 years from now that said, well, you know what, they were here on Saturday mornings doing extra work. It didn't make them better, but they were there. It's either going to be a win or a loss. And that's kind of how I view a lot of, I'll just be honest, stuff in that realm of, so if we're going to be here, right, hey, it's 30 minutes. We're going to lock in and we're going to get this done. Or I'll just be honest, you can leave. Like, it's fine. Like, you don't have to be here, but if you're going to be here, we're going to get better. Does everyone understand that? Like, and it's not like putting on, well, I just read some leadership book and like, whatever. I'm like pretty serious. Like, I want to get this done. It's going to be done this way and we're going to go about that. You know what I mean? So like, I think having those realistic like conversations, and if someone hears that, like, oh, you know what I mean? You get some people that maybe like, whatever. But a lot of times people are like, lock in and let's get to work. You know what I mean? Same with the younger kids. I'm like, hey, like, come talking to them where they're at, like, what do you guys, what do they want to improve? A lot of them just want to lift and they want to learn and they want to get better on that stuff. All right. So, hey, like, let's lock in, let's focus. Why are we talking right now? Like, why are we doing this other stuff? And then as we get better, like I said, as you advance in a lot of this stuff, then like a lot of stuff that you're seeing, not necessarily like in that clip, but like some other stuff. I mean, that wasn't stuff that we just started with, you know what I mean? That was stuff that was advanced and progressed to. And that's kind of how the process happens. So like, as you see like 7th and 8th grade girls there going over on our lateral stuff, there's 5th, 6th graders, when you can listen, you can pay attention, you can focus on that stuff, that allows everything else to happen. You know what I mean? It's very, the teaching aspect, I'll be honest, I feel very confident in that. So like the plan that I have, the teaching, the coaching, I feel very confident in that. The problem is when people aren't listening, they're not focusing. That just takes a long time. Like there was a really good quote, and I can't remember the book, but it was a 1st grade teacher, and she said, I need 1st graders that can come in and listen and sit still, and then I can teach them numbers and letters. It's not the other way around. Like I need 1st graders to come in, sit still and listen, focus, and then I can teach you everything. It's kind of the same. I'll be honest, I've applied that a lot with myself of like, if we can just listen, pay attention, I feel very confident. It might not be perfect, or I might not know how to do something, but I feel confident I'm going to learn. I'm going to put the time and the effort in to try and get this to be the best that it can. Right. So I think that's just looking at it like that. And then just being open and transparent. Like, I want you to get better. Like, I really want you to get better. But if you're talking, you're messing around, like there's no secret plan. There's no secret exercise. Like if you're trying to do whatever it is that we're doing, like some of those mobility or what other drills, but you're talking, you're having a conversation, you're really not able to push yourself to the level you need to get better, if that makes sense. And I think that's where, if you can start harnessing the focus, the attention to detail on that stuff, that makes the whole training process so much easier in just my opinion. So like, if we're not going the way that I want, okay, let's stop. Like, we're either not going to do it, or we're going to be done, or whatever. But like, there's going to be like a certain, I guess, standard, if you will, of like, this is how it's going to be done, and this is just how I'm going to run it. You know what I mean? And maybe that's me, yelling. Maybe that's me having a conversation, like joking. Maybe that's whatever it is. But like, if we're doing it, it's going to be done at a really high level. And that's just how I'm going to go about it. So I think that's, and to be honest, I think everyone's got a different personality. I think maybe my personality's unique, if you want to call it that. You know what I mean? It's just who I am. And I think whether it was college, junior high, like whatever, I think I'm just different, you know, personality wise than most people. You know what I mean? So like, I probably can't explain it very well, but I think like, oh, you're kind of unique. You're, you know, like whatever. Like, I think that when I say something, man, I haven't heard a coach, you know, be that kind of honest before or whatever. Okay. Well, now you're probably listening differently and it resonates differently, if you will.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm jealous, like, of those kids that get trained by him. Imagine having such a great coach at such a young age.
Yeah, I didn't have that much in college. Even in high school, I didn't have a strength and conditioning coach like that. But an interesting thing that I'm kind of curious about is you work with all these kids, and you were talking a little bit to us in the gym about how you kind of get them to pay attention, because there's a lot of them at one time. I think a lot of coaches may struggle with that, trying to get kids to actually do what you need them to do, but all of them doing what you need them to do. And then the other thing is when you see a lot of these clips on your page with them doing a lot of these complex movements, it's surprising to see young kids working with load and look so good with it. They all look extremely proficient. So how did you set that up? And the reason why I'm asking this is because we've had different people on the podcast work with kids in terms of S&C. And, you know, some people don't think that kids should be working with squats and deadlifts and that type of thing at a younger age. They think it actually negatively affects them athletically. But if all the kids were doing the things like you show them in these videos, all these kids would be just fine. So how do you get this set up?
I think it starts with having like a long-term process or long-term plan in place. So when I'm working with like say a 12, 13, 14, whoever it is, right? I'm looking, you know, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. All right. So what we're doing, you know, for this, you know, month, 2 month, 3 month, it sets everything else down the line. So like the example I'll use is if you can't squat very well, all right, how, like if I want to get 2 years from now and I want to do like an accommodating resistance session, because that's what's needed to get your vertical from 33 to 34.5, but you don't squat very well, how well is that gonna work? Like you have to be able to squat well to be able to get the specific modalities that you're probably gonna need, right? So starting with that, like if I can't add very well, if I struggle with just basic addition, subtraction, when I get to algebra, I'm gonna struggle big time. So I try and take like, hey, if we're starting with our bodyweight squats, I want it to look pretty much perfect. It's challenging when you have a large number of individuals because everyone's gonna be at a different level. But the nice thing is like, if you spend an extra week or two doing bodyweight squats with a 12 or 13-year-old, it's fine. Like they're going to get benefit out of it. They don't need to rush. And I think people want to rush too quick on stuff.
Yeah.
I don't need to rush. If I got 6 years to train someone before they even go to college, we can take an extra week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I can take a month. But like kind of the point we were talking about earlier, it's going to be done at a really high level. That's just the standard. So like, okay, if I'm not seeing what I want on a bodyweight squat, right? Why would I move on to like a goblet squat or like a weighted squat or like whatever? So like, you know, that's a really good example of just, you know, in, I think that was 2 years, 7th grade, 2021, freehand front squat. All right. To, you know,
nice.
That was and you see the fight and the thing right there. All right. That's a 7th grader to a freshman. All right. But do you see how he struggles and see how he stays he doesn't cheat his depth. Look at that last one.
It's unbelievable.
And he maintains amazing position.
And then good job by the spotter, too.
Yeah.
The spotter knows what's up, you know?
Yeah.
But like,
you got to let him strain, you know?
But part of skill is not just like, okay, you can do the movement, but like, okay, that's like a max lift. What does your technique look like under a relative like heavy max lift? Most times what you see with kids is like it's heavy and what does their squat depth do?
They cut it.
They cut it and they cheat it. And I told them like, and this, like before that and other ones, and again, just being honest, my personality, I, you know, kind of went on to like a little, what'd you call it, 300 speech before, like whatever. I'm like, I told him, like, hey, here's the deal. There is no honor in putting more weight on the bar and doing a quarter squat. There's zero honor in a weight room. You can go to any weight room in America. There's
and
no,
he kicked the kid in the chest and he fell off a cliff. Sparta!
There is no honor. I said, you know what there is honor in is? It's heavy. You go down, you might miss it, but at least that's honorable. That's honorable in the weight room to do your same squat that you always do and you miss the rep, right? So like, boom, I talk about that, whatever. And, you know, and they've been squatting for so long that when you only know one way to do something, you don't see people deviate too far out of it for the most part. You know what I mean? So like, okay, you've been doing squats for 2 years now. Now it gets heavier or whatever. You're not going to probably see someone just like, man, I've never seen that before, or whatever. But that just comes from the reps and like all the time spent doing bodyweight squats, doing goblet squats, doing freehand front squats, doing, you know what I mean? Like all that other stuff. So that's what like I look at from a skill standpoint. All right, what do we look like when it gets heavier? What are we looking at like all these other stuff? So like that example right there, you saw the first one was like a 6-second lower, if I remember correctly, which we spent a bunch of time slow eccentrics, long pauses, because that's not just from a preparing the tissues and what we're looking at from an adaptation with that. It's a learning process. When you have to go slow, you're feeling your body in those positions. You're understanding how to do the movement correctly, right? Most of the time what I see is people will do squats, push-ups, other stuff, but it's just done fast. There's no control. There's no position. So you might be doing it, but you're not actually learning like the positions. Now, as we go, it's funny because I would get people comments like, oh, how long do you do all these slow lowers for or whatever? And then like you saw that second video, people are like, man, they're squatting they're going down way too fast. Like, what do you do? Like, boom, boom, boom. I'm like, literally like a couple of years ago, I had people saying you're going too slow, you're doing too much of this. And I got people saying you're going too fast, right? That was part of the plan. Like
the internet.
That right there, and I talk about like rapid eccentrics, right? The faster you can move eccentrically is extremely important from an athletic standpoint. Like eccentric peak velocity is a key component that I look at like with force plates and other stuff. So like the faster I can eccentrically load, the more basically elastic energy I potentially have the opportunity to use. So you look at someone, a world-class football player or whatever, when they're coming into a cut at high velocity, there's a ton of eccentric velocity, right? You have somebody that can't run that fast. They're either having to slow down or they're like whatever, right? If you can't make cuts at high velocity, it really limits your ability to be very, very good at the highest levels. So when like that example right there, I don't do rapid eccentrics with kids that are learning. You've got to develop and we take time and like whatever. And now when I want this specific adaptation that I need in the program, I can do it because I can squat good. I understand how to do it correctly. All right. So now I can go. So like that example right there, like that kid, I think he was at like a 27 vert, if I remember correctly. I think he did like 33.8 or 34. So he went from 7th grade to freshman, 30 like 7 inches or whatever. Right. And so not saying it's all entirely, you know what I mean, the program or whatever, but like, okay, now he's 33.8. I want 36. Now I want 38 and I want, and you know what? We might not get there, but like, that's kind of at least my philosophy. Like we're trying to push performance to keep going up. All right. If you want to be lackadaisical, I don't care if you're a freshman in high school or you're a world-class NFL player or whatever. Like as a coach, if you're working with a coach, it's not very like, kind of like, oh, well, okay, like whatever. Like I want to work with people, at least, and this is me just personally, I want to work with people that want to push me to be my absolute best. So if I'm working with a coach that's like, I want this and this, and we're going to push to that, you're probably going to get your best performance out of yourself, right? I think I veered off significantly from whatever the original question was. How do you get kids to like whatever? So like keeping that in mind. So like trying to, like I said, look at the long-term play. And then, like I said, if I'm not seeing a good body weight squat, we'll spend extra time doing it. Right now we're going to goblet. Right. One of the things that I do is I always go heels elevated when I'm teaching the squat. Right. And people will say,
when you start,
yeah, why do you do that? I'm like, well, here's the thing. There's a lot of kids that don't need it, but like if I have a group of 40 kids, let's just put everybody on it because there's going to be kids that need it on there. It's very hard to individualize training when you're starting to work with kids and you have a large group. But if everyone's just doing the exact same thing, hey, even if you don't need to have your heels elevated, I mean, those are freshmen in college, but you can see like right there, and that's what it should look like. And I'll be honest, I have, freshmen in high school that are doing more weight than that. And those are freshmen in college, Division I football players. But like to that point of, I put everybody heels elevated. Okay, we learn how to do it. We learn how to push our knee forward. We learn how to sink down. It's an easier movement. Okay, now as we go, I might say, okay, hey, after I've watched for a couple of weeks, I can kind of tell, okay, you 15 or 20, I want you guys to take your heels off the board. So now the whole group of 40 is running, all right? And that's a 6th grade girl with, was it a 50-pound dumbbell? But you know what I mean? But like now, so like this was, I think, a month ago. She's doing... It's
incredible form. Her back couldn't be any straighter.
But, and I think I've got a video. I haven't posted it. But I think she was doing a 60-pound dumbbell flat-footed. So like that's 6th grade, you know what I mean?
That's got to make her confident playing her sport.
Oh, absolutely.
Throwing around 60-pound dumbbell.
And I'll go to that example. And the thing that I really enjoy working with younger kids specifically, it's like, they're like, I'm hearing them, and that's when you know they enjoy it. Because it's like, you're walking around coaching whatever, and then they're like talking to the group like, okay, we did a 40-pound dumbbell. Like, let's try and do a 45 next week. Like, whatever. I'm like, okay, like they're making their own goals in their head. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which is a big thing. So like a good example too, kind of with that is, I think there's a coaching aspect of, so like if I have a kid, and this is one that happened recently, I had a 5th, 6th grade girl that been doing body weight like on the split squats, and I was like, oh, you can grab weight if you want to. She stayed with body weight, was doing good, whatever. The next week, I look over and like, wait, she's got a 20-pound dumbbell. I'm like, she just went over and grabbed it herself. She's feeling confident in herself to go grab that. All right, and then even though like half the reps were good. There was ones where I was like, realistically, I would have been probably gone maybe a 10 or a 15, whatever. But I was like, okay, This is like a big step. Like she had the confidence to go get that. If I come over and be like, oh no, see how we should probably go down to a 10. How's that going to feel to like a 12-year-old? Like, oh man, I tried something and it didn't work good. Okay, you know what? Like I probably would have gone less. We're not going to get hurt doing this. We're fine. This is good for right now. When we come back next week, then I'm going to come back and we'll see what she grabs. And I might be like, hey, why don't we grab like a 10 or 15? And like, I just want to see this that week. So I'm not saying that what you did bad last week was bad, but now I'm kind of coming back. Let's go here, like whatever. So like, those are kind of like the micro kind of what's kind of going on in my head when I'm seeing that stuff. Now you get times too, where you get like the kids that like, oh, here's a 70 pound. Like, no.
Yeah.
Like, no, your technique is like, you're not, you know what I mean? But every situation, you're that's what coaching is, at least in my opinion, is like, you're trying to, what's the individual, like, what do they need to improve, to progress? Sometimes it's just confidence. Like, you're crushing that. Like, you can do another 20 pounds, like, easily. You know what I mean? Because you get some kids that they just want to, like, go less or, like, be comfortable. And it's like, they just need that, like, no, you can do more. Like, and part of it helps me, too, is, like, and I tell them, like, how diligent am I on technique? Very. I'm like, so if I'm telling you, I think you can go up on 20 pounds, if I'm doing that, do you think I'm going to let you see, like, a bad squat or whatever? Like, no. I'm like, I believe, I trust in you. And I think that's where it comes, like, when you have, like, a high standard and I say something like that, it's like, I'm not just like, trying to, hey, put 50 pounds on. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
Like I said, I try and keep that standard high. So I think the kids, like, kind of like a light bulb, like, oh, I think you're right. And then they do it. And it's like, I'll be honest, you probably could have done that for 2 more reps. Like, whatever. You know what I mean? So, like, that's kind of how I try and build, like, confidence and, like, kind of repertoire, with kids and, like, kind of just being honest and transparent, like I said, with that stuff. But I think the confidence and that other stuff is really big. And then just like I said, with large groups, trying to set it up to, like, okay, we're going to keep working to make sure it's really good. And we might take an extra couple weeks doing it, but I want to solidify it. Now we'll move on. And I'm not scared to regress. So, like, a good example, like with my freshman football, like, I didn't like how they started learning how to back squat end of 8th grade. We went into the summer, right? And I was kind of running around doing coaching. I couldn't be around them all the time. In the summer, I was just like, you know what? I'm just like, man, I don't like how our back squats are looking. So I like, hey, here's what we're doing. Football season started. We're going back to freehand front squats. And I know you've been doing it for 2 years. I don't care. The back squats don't look how they want. We're not doing this or whatever. I don't care if we have to spend another year doing freehand front squats. It's going to be done at the level that I want and I expect. And like, whatever. We went a month, cleaned up some stuff, looked great. Going to back squat. Back squats have been great since. So I'm not like, okay, freehand front squats was a big regression. But hey, you know what? The back squats, they're not looking how I want and they're not what I expect. So I'm not scared. Like I said, Instill, you're 14, 15 years old. Okay, we'll spend another couple months regressing or whatever. Yeah. It's not the end of the world. But like I said, that's what, if I want something done, it's going to be done at a high level. So if I have to regress to get there, we're going to do that. And I think that's kind of one of the standards, hopefully the kids or whoever I'm working with kind of see if like it's going to be done at a super, super high level.
How do you give them like a little bit of autonomy and just make them feel, I know you're not there to like necessarily just make them feel good all the time, but how do you like, you got maybe the couple of kids maybe that are kind of behind, the form's not there. It's just, they're just not ready and they really want to do some weights. Do you maybe have them utilize maybe a different weight rather than like a barbell on the back or something like that?
Yeah. So I would say kind of 2 parts on that. So I would do, first of all, like probably like either a dumbbell, like variation of whatever we're doing, go lighter. So there are times where I'll be like a Bulgarian split squat where I'll be like, I'll show them like the first time we do it. I'm like, okay, if you want to go to like we've done it before, but we're going to a barbell because I want to increase the load. Also because like a lot of times like with, kids in general, like the grip is your limiting factor. Like when you're holding dumbbells. So it's like, okay, like with the Bulgarian, like if you're doing it with a barbell, like a front squat grip, you can overload it more because your grip's not going to be as big of an issue. So like that's an example of like, I would go to that and I'd be like, here's the deal. There's a lot more like it's relatively safe, but like your balance, there's a lot more. If you have dumbbells, you can drop them. Barbell's different. If you don't feel comfortable with that, perfectly fine. Stay with dumbbells. Anybody that wants to try and go with the barbell, you can go ahead and do that today. So whichever one you want to do, you can go ahead and do that. So I'll do stuff like that. You know what I mean? Where it's kind of giving them the option. And it might be like they stay with dumbbells for 2 weeks and then they go to the barbell, if you will. So that's one way, dropping it down. And then I'll be honest, I think the other thing too is like my biggest things is if you can show up and you just show up and you want to work hard and you want to get better, that's honestly like that's the most important thing, especially with younger kids. Like I'm just like, you can have the perfect program, you can have the perfect exercises. But like to a certain degree, if you show up, and I think it's a life skill, honestly, like showing up and like, man, I want to get better today. Like if you show up to school, and I know it's kind of like, might sound redundant, but like if you kind of show up, man, I hate school, like whatever, like boom, boom.
Yeah.
how well do you think you're going to do in it? You know what I mean? If you show up, like, and I say, like, show up to the weight room, I'll be honest. If you just kind of go through the motions right now when you're 12, 13, 14 years old, you'll make some progress because it's the first time you've ever you picked up a dumbbell. You're going to get to a point, though, where you can't just show up. Like, you have to show up and you have to have a level of focus. You have to work hard. When you go into life, like business or whatever, if you kind of just show up kind of like, not really great attitude or whatever, you're going to set yourself back significantly. All right. So when I have kids, and this is one of the biggest things I think is really important, is I try and give praise, or I give praise, not necessarily like, oh, you squat the most, you bench the most, or whatever. I try and praise great technique, but also, you know what? Like, I take a lot of pride in the kids, and I'm very proud of the kids that show up, and they're not the biggest, they're not the strongest, but they show up every day. Some of those kids, I was with you at 8 a.m. in the summer when you were in seventh. You didn't have to be here. And I'll highlight them, not just to them, to the entire group, like 60 kids. Like, hey, you know what? He's running around everywhere. He has a sense of urgency when he comes in. He wants to get better. And I don't care if you bench press 65 pounds or 265 pounds. All right. If you show up every day and you work hard, you want to get better, and you keep doing the best, whatever your best is, and you keep giving that 65 pounds is going to go to 70. It's going to go to 75. You're going to get more reps. It's going to come. Right. I know it can be difficult, but if you just show up and do your best every day, you're going to make the progress. And I think that's one of the things I really try and highlight, because I have a lot of kids they'll pick up, you know what I mean? Like, we have specific ways I want stuff turned in the weight room. So like the way the weights are turned, the way that the kettlebells are lined up, like all that stuff, the benches have to be lined up a specific way. And I'll have a lot of kids that they're going to pick up other areas that aren't theirs. So it's not their responsibility. And I tell them, like, if you go out into life and you're doing stuff you're picking up other people's areas, do you know how valuable that is as a company, as a business, whatever? No one told you to do that. Yeah. And you know what? People might look past or whatever, but I respect that and I really appreciate that. Like, and I'll highlight them in front of other people, like their peers, other coaches. Like, it has nothing to do with your skills or your abilities, but like, that's the stuff that I really appreciate. Like, hey, you're helping that person, doesn't know what they're doing, but they showed up for the first time today, but you went over there and helped them and showed them. Like, I want to highlight that because you're doing a great job. So that's one of the things I really try and, do as best as I can, honestly, is to try and highlight that, because I think those are the important life skills. And those are the stuff from an environment standpoint. That is like probably one of the best things from a team atmosphere. You know what I mean? When you have everybody kind of like wanting to be their best, regardless of whatever their best is, that's how you get these high performance environments when people are just trying to drive and be the best they can. So like, that's kind of how I go about it. And I try to just really highlight and, praise the stuff that I want to see, or stuff that's going to be really beneficial, for the long term.
Yeah. Hey guys, if you like this clip, go ahead and comment down below and let us know what you liked about it. All right. Share this with a friend. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And also, we are on Reddit and Discord. All that's down below. All our sponsors and everyone that supports us down below there too. So you can get whatever you like from us. All right. Peace.